Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, man?
And Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
And on this episode of tonight's podcast, we are going to be continuing our Inside the Prospect series. If you've been following along with us since December when we started breaking down these rookies, we have been going one prospect a week, getting in the tape. We watch 5 games of all 22 film. We write down extensive notes. We come in here, we talk about it. We go trait by trait. And tonight we are going to be discussing Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. His official measurements at the Senior Bowl were 5'10" and 220 pounds. He is a senior. And he would have been, I think, potentially a top 3 back for me in last year's class. Had he come out, I had watched a little bit of tape for him because I expected him to be in last year's class. Then he decided to go back to school. So the production is pretty incredible. 3 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards rushing. And even his true freshman season, he had 700 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns as a true freshman. The receiving production has been there a little bit too. He's had over 25 receptions, couple straight years, over 200 yards receiving, a receiving touchdown in each of his collegiate seasons. So yeah, incredibly productive. I think he holds a lot of the all-time records for the University of Kansas. So excited to get into his tape. And 220 pounds, by the way, was a great weigh-in for him at the Senior Bowl. I was not expecting that. I thought, if anything, he was listed at 215 by his school, and I thought he might actually come in a little lighter than that. So 220 was a good weigh-in. But let's get into it. If you're new to the show, we're always going trait by trait, and we start with vision and patience at the running back position. We watch at least 5 games. In this case, I think I watched like 8. Maybe more for Devin Neal. We had a lot of tape on him, and I watched as much of it as I could. We watched that in the Dynasty Nerds All 22 Film Room, so you can check that out at dynastynerds.com and use promo code COOP for 15% off. That's where we do all of our tape study as we're getting into these rookies. But without further ado, let's get into it. I'll start with you, Jackson. What did you notice from Devin Neal in terms of his vision and his patience?
I really liked him in both areas, both vision and patience. I never saw him take a wrong cut. And there were several times, and we're going to get to this trait when we come to his elusiveness and short area quickness, but there were so many times where I saw him hit a hole that I didn't initially see, and I had to kind of rewind tape a little bit. And so he actually saw that hole. That was a really great vision, and to not only see the hole at the first level, but he's very shifty and creative, I thought, at the second level as well. Saw really well how to set up defenders. He's a really patient runner. I think that's one of his better traits. I gave him an 8.5 for patience. There were so many times where I saw him kind of bouncing back and forth in the backfield, and then a hole opens and boom, he explodes through the hole. Super patient runner, really great vision. I came away a little more impressed for somebody that's a bigger back at just how well he does these 2 things.
What about you, Rupert?
I couldn't agree more. We saw exactly the same way. I gave him an 8.5 as well for patience. He was doing that Le'Veon Bell thing where his feet are, square. He's just kind of sitting back there. He has a hand on his offensive lineman, just seeing what opens up. And what's really impressive is he's able to get super skinny through some holes. Like you said, Jackson, I'm like, how did he even see that to get through that whole thing? He's basically has to turn sideways and shimmy through a hole. It was really impressive. I really, really like this part of his game. He also showed a lot of creativity to me, kind of stringing moves together, kind of seeing, a couple moves ahead instead of just seeing one defender in front of him.
I know you didn't just name drop Le'Veon Bell. You said you gave him an 8 or an 8.5, something.
8.5.
Okay. You know, he's listed as the name for like what a 10 out of 10 looks like is Le'Veon Bell, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why he used Le'Veon Bell. That's why he used the name.
All right.
That's what I said. He did that Le'Veon Bell thing a couple times, like where he's just kind of sitting back.
Okay, a couple times. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. No, I agree with you guys. I'm just messing with you. I also had an 8.5 for him for patience and an 8 for vision. So I thought really highly of him in this area. Some of the notes that I had was that he's got a number of times that he just read the leverage well, like understood. You know, there were a couple plays particularly where it felt like a lot of running backs would have really tried to force it and outrun people to the edge, even though the defense had outside leverage. And he was just patient enough to like wait until that cutback lane opened and then bang, especially in the red zone. And so, yeah, definitely a couple flashes of second level vision as well. Once he got kind of beyond that initial line of scrimmage to set up defenders that way. So I was impressed with Devin Neal, and the patience in particular really stood out multiple times as I was doing a live film watch with some of the guys in the Discord, and I think a number of us said out loud multiple times, like, "Man, he's patient." So yeah, it's a good trait for him for sure. Well, the next trait we always talk about with running backs is elusiveness, and this, for me, I'm just gonna spoil it. It was probably his most fun trait to watch. Um, we'll start with you, Rupert. What did you see from elusiveness?
Just as you said, it was incredibly fun to watch. I gave him a 9 for elusiveness, and an 8.5 for like its quickness. He has really quick feet, but he has such an impressive dead leg cut. Like he just plants one foot and he stops immediately and goes the opposite direction. It's what we like to call this, or not we like to call, but people like to call the stop foot, go foot. Like he can stop on one foot and accelerate in the opposite direction. He'll, like you said, like with his vision and patience, like he can see a hole opening up on the backside, plants his foot. He's already accelerating the opposite way to get into that hole. And then like he just uses that so well, especially like when he gets in one-on-one situations. I saw him a lot of times too in the red zone. It's just him and the linebacker, and he just plants his foot, and the guy doesn't even get a hand on him. It's so impressive. He's very, very quick-footed.
Yeah, so when we were in the Discord hanging out, watching the film, one of the guys asked, like, how did we get into creating content and doing all this? And I told him that you and I used to listen to Christopher Harris all the time and watch his YouTube videos. And that's where we kind of cut our teeth getting into grinding film. And that was something that Christopher Harris would always talk about was the stop foot, go foot. When you can plant that one foot and then explode out of it without having to take multiple steps, it's such an effective move, and not everybody can do it. And he is kind of the picture perfect, like what a dead leg cut should look like. Devin Neal did it over and over and over again. I think the only reason I didn't have him higher than a 9 is because that seemed like it was kind of his only move. I didn't really see any like spins or, two-footed jump cuts. Like there wasn't a lot of versatility. He just had that go-to dead leg cut, but it was, he's a one-trick pony, but it's a dang good trick, man.
It is filthy.
I feel like we're underselling it a little bit, though, because, like, let's keep in mind the dude is 220 pounds. Like, he shouldn't be able to move and have the lateral agility and quickness that he has at 220 pounds. Like, it's unreal for his size. Even when you size adjust it, like, that's why I gave him a 9. I was like, I saw some of the same things you did, Cooper, where, like, he's kind of a one-trick pony. He's got the dead leg, but not really much else. But when you're 220 pounds and you're making linebackers and safeties fall at the rate that he was making them fall, it's insane.
Well, so I will say I only have one question related to that, and that's, did he bulk up for the combine? Was he actually playing at 220? Because to me, he doesn't look like he's playing at 220. And we'll get into the power and the balance and all that in a minute. So that's my only caveat on that. But I agree. It was impressive. In my notes, I said he had an insane knack for making linebackers miss in the hole. It was unreal how he could go untouched in super tight spaces. Like, I mean, you're talking about this thin hole and the linebacker's meeting him in it, and there's no room to his left or to his right, and somehow he still jukes him so bad that the guy doesn't even get a finger on him and he's left falling on the ground. So it was fun. That's why I said, like, 5 minutes into the tape watch, I'd already seen him do this like 3 times in the first game that I'm watching. And that's when I pinged the Discord and was like, all right, at everyone, I'm doing Devin Neal's going to be fun. Who wants to watch with me? And we ended up with 5 or 6 guys in there watching the tape. So yeah, it was all over. It's not like you just saw him once or twice. It was all over every game. And he could string multiple of them together too. Like dead leg, all in a row, which is just hard to do at any size.
Saying he's more fun than the guy that I made you watch a week ago.
Yes. Not naming any names, but Juice Wells was about to put us all asleep in the Discord when we were watching him. So, all right. So I think that's a good segue, though. I mentioned I didn't think he looked like he played at 220. And so the next thing we're going to get into is power and contact balance. And yeah, for a guy that's 5'10", 220 is like ideal. I mean, it's like if you were looking for an ideal height weight for a running back, 5'10", 220 is it. The thought is like, hey, if you're 220 pounds, you can carry that bell cow workload. Usually would be like a big power back. Is he a big power back? What do you think, Rupert?
Not at all. I couldn't agree more that I was watching the tape. I was like, he looks like he's more 210 max is kind of what I was thinking in my head. He just didn't really have that element to his game. I agree. I feel like he must have bulked up some for the Senior Bowl to win at 220. I was more disappointed in the contact balance, being that he has such strong legs to be able to do those dead leg cuts. I didn't feel like his contact balance was that great. It's not bad, but I expected it to be a little bit better. I ended up giving him 7 there for contact balance and 6 for break tackle. And again, this could almost be because he's just so reliant on just dead leg cutting guys. They didn't get a lot of practice on breaking tackles kind of like head on and using his power. But I just didn't really see much of a power element to his game.
Yeah, I gave him a 7.5 for contact balance. And the reason that I did that is because I saw him do that dead leg, and guys would get an arm on him. He would kind of stumble a little bit, but keep his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave him a higher grade. I mean, that was passable for me. So I thought he had good contact balance. Where he struggled was the break tackle, his power running, like pad level, like that. Those were all average at best, right? Like I thought he was a super upright runner. Never really was a guy for his size or what we think his size is that ever ran through tackles. That just wasn't his game. It seemed like if some guy hit him square, right, and he didn't get the dead leg off, if somebody got square contact with him, he was going down. For somebody that looked as stocky as he was, I was a little surprised in that area.
Yeah, I had a lot of the same notes. What you said about making the dead leg cut and somebody would kind of clip him and he'd keep his feet. I definitely saw that. And I saw a lot of times where he would keep his legs moving to drag a guy for a few extra yards at the end of the run, particularly when he was up to speed, when he could kind of convert speed to power on the second level. There was one run against Kansas State where he dragged 2 guys for 9 yards into the end zone. And I was like, oh, there's some power. But it didn't feel like that was all over his tape. I didn't think he broke too many tackles at all. And he wasn't great at pushing the pile. I think a lot of that had to do with the pad level. I need to look and see what grade did I give him for pad level. I gave him a 6 with a 6 for break tackle. And I gave him a 7 for power and a 7 for balance. So I think he is strong, and I do think he has balance. I think because of the pad level is why he's not pushing piles or breaking tackles as much as you would want him to. And excuse me, in particular, there was a play against Kansas State. You guys probably noticed it, where they got a safety, and I think it was totally on him. because they handed it off to him. It looked like the blocking was there. He kind of got stuck on the back of his offensive lineman when there was a hole to the right of his offensive lineman, so he didn't quite get on his O-line's hip the way he needed to. But then he was just so straight up and down. Like there was no bend to his knees at all, and there was no push. I felt like it looked to me like he should have easily been able to move the pile forward for a yard and get across the end zone line and save his team 2 points. And he just didn't. So that was disappointing. I don't think he's going to be like an amazing goal line back despite weighing in at 220 pounds.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
So let's take a quick break before we get into the rest of the traits here and just shout out the Couch Scouts website, man. CouchScouts.com. We provide league-winning analysis and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Our bread and butter is this time of year. It's rookie content. This is the best time of year to get in on CouchScouts.com, to join the family. We have a rookie guide that is in the works that's going to be the ultimate cheat sheet for dominating your rookie draft. We do a bonus show every week covering some of the sleeper names. So tonight we're going to be talking Trevor Etienne on a bonus show just for our members. You can schedule one-on-one consultations with us, which those have been really fun when we've gotten to sit down with members and just talk in detail through a dynasty roster. We've got an all-22 film room with IDP players and some Devy guys. So definitely recommend checking out Couch Scouts. You can get a package for as low as $5 a month, and you can save 15% with an annual subscription. Check it out today, CouchScouts.com. So without any further ado.
That's what I think of that, Cooper.
Yeah, got the thumbs up emoji reaction for those of you listening on the audio feed. Let's get into talking athleticism here because, again, I feel like a broken record. He's listed 220. So, in theory, if you're size adjusting, like speed and all that. Anyway, so size, speed, burst, quickness. What do we see here from Devin Neal? I'll start with you, Jackson.
Yeah, I want to start with his speed. And burst. I thought they were good, right? I gave him a 7 for both of these. I thought his long speed left a little to be desired to me. I saw him get caught from behind a good amount of times. He's not the quickest guy when it comes to long speed. He does have good enough speed to break off some long runs. He's got really good burst. I would say within that 3 to 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, like right when he sees the hole open, he's got pretty good insane burst for his size to be able to hit that hole hard. Where he really shines, and again, we're sounding like a broken record, but it's his quickness and lateral agility. Like I gave him an 8.5 for quickness. I gave him, 8.5 for quickness. I mean, he's just super, super good laterally. His ability to dead leg, as we've already talked about, shake defenders down, just beat those linebackers and safety in a box. So I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I gave him a 8.5 as well for quickness. I gave him a 7.5 for burst and acceleration, but if he actually did play at 220 and had that kind of burst, I probably would bump him up to an 8. I think in that 5-yard range, like he gets that burst through the hole is really impressive. I gave him a 7 for game speed. Like the long speed is not the best, but it's totally adequate, especially with his quickness and burst. So he can break off long runs, but he's normally going to be doing that by making guys miss, not having crazy like acceleration that keeps on going up to a very high long speed. But he's really, really good athlete, and I'll say it again, especially if he actually did play at 220. I still have my doubts about that, but it was really good all around.
All right. Well, I got to ask you guys, the game against Colorado where they were wearing the red pants, am I the only one that thought he looked like a totally different player in that game? Like he looked chunky and thick and slow.
Yeah.
And it was like, Did he gain 15 pounds from the previous week? Like what?
He had
What
too much,
happened?
he had too much pasta in pregame. Too many carbs, Coop.
I don't know, but he had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game, plus another 87 through the air and a 4th touchdown receiving. So it was a pretty dang good game.
Oh no, he never blew me away with his speed though. Like his speed wasn't ever
No.
something that I was like, that's incredible.
No, it didn't for me either. I had him at a 7 for speed and a 7 for burst. So I felt like it was okay. He reaccelerated well out of cuts. His burst is maybe slightly above average. It's not amazing. I think his burst out of a cut was better than his burst running sideline to sideline, trying to get around defenders on the edge. And I did think when he got in the open field, he just kind of looked a little, I don't want to say slow, but it was underwhelming. Like he didn't have that breakaway, that second gear to hit the home run. So the quickness was my highest grade. I had him at an 8.5, just like you guys said. So again, with that dead leg cut and the ability to change direction was really good. So yeah, not an amazing athlete, not a terrible athlete. So one more thing we need to talk about here is the third down skill set. I mean, you can't these days. You're talking fantasy football. We're all playing in PPR leagues. This is such a huge element for the running backs. What did you notice from the third down skill set? We'll go to you, Rupert.
I thought he was a solid pass catcher, not, the best we've seen in this class. They did wind him out wide, like in the slot. Not, I wouldn't say often, but it was enough to be noticeable. And I thought he was really good on the wheel routes out of the backfield. So I feel like he's someone that can be, a good weapon at the second at the NFL level. With his pass protection, I just thought it was solid. Like pass fail grade, I'd pass him. But it's just not on the level of some of the other guys we've seen in this class. So overall, like I'd say it's not something that's going to separate him from the rest of these running backs, but it's not something that's going to be a detriment to him.
I'd say in the pass blocking, like he was passable, but like for me, it was barely. Like I gave him a 6.5 for pass blocking. I saw some really good moments where like he would engage a blitzing linebacker up the A gap or defensive end around the edge. He would engage him and hold that block really well. But there were also times where like he just looked lost. He would miss a blocking assignment and Daniels would have to kind of run for his life a little bit. Like it was a mixed bag. Like it was passable, but like it's not something that what was overly great. Now I'll agree with you that the pass catching, I think that worked really well for him. He had soft hands. I saw several times that he made a man miss in the open field after turning with the ball and heading upfield.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that area's game, but pass blocking was not a strength in my opinion for him.
Yeah, similar observations here. This is not a guy that's going to be, if you're looking at 3 tiers, which is how I look at it, you got the guy that's a total like bricks for hands. He's got to come off the field. You can't trust him. You've got passable, like he can catch all the check down stuff, reliable hands, can get some yak, but he's not running routes. And then the third tier, you've got like this guy's a weapon. You can split him out wide, put him in the slot, whatever. He's that chess piece that's moving all over the board. I've got Devin Neal pretty squarely in that second tier.
Yeah.
Like soft hands, but nothing really except for check downs and screens and stuff. Like he's not doing a bunch of stuff down the field. I don't think he's got that in his bag. But he's dangerous in space. So like you said, Jackson, a bunch of times they threw it out to him on that check down, and then he brought out that nasty dead leg cut. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's a 15-yard gain because he made the first guy to get to him miss. So that was good. As far as the pass protection, I had him at a 6. Exactly what you said, Jackson. I don't need to repeat all of it, but there were some plays that he looked really good. And then particularly the Kansas State game was not good. Like they were heavy blitzing and he just wasn't picking them up. At the end of that game, I felt like there were like 4 or 5 plays in a row where I was like, that was a bad rep. That was a bad rep. That was a bad rep. So Kansas State, they figured out, hey, if we blitz, Devin Neal can't pick it up, and they were killing his quarterback. So that was a little bit concerning for me. I had him at a 6, but he did give effort, and there were some
lost.
There were some good reps for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll stop there. That's a good summary, I think, of him. Like you're looking at a guy. I guess we should give our overall observations here. So I'll give mine. My total score on him when all was said and done is a 74.95. Now, I feel like we're saying this every week because this class is just so much better.
Yeah.
But that would have been like a top 2 grade for me in last year's class. That's a good, respectable score. It doesn't necessarily stand out of the pack in this year's class, but a 74.95 for me is right on the borderline between a flex option and a fantasy starter. And I think a lot of that's going to depend on a draft capital, landing spot, all of that kind of stuff. But I liked him. I think he's a good, patient, between the tackles runner with good elusiveness, some decent enough power element to his game. Like he's a well-rounded player. He can catch passes. He doesn't have any grades for me below a 6. So a lot of times you've got the guy that's an archetype that's like, oh, he's a 9 for elusiveness, but he's a 5 for power, or vice versa, or whatever. Devin Neal's at least a 6 in every category on our grading sheet. So he's a good, well-rounded player that I think definitely can find himself a role at the next level. And if he's got the right draft capital, I'm going to be real interested in him as a 2nd-round rookie pick. You guys agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I got him at a 74.2, which puts him right there at flex auction, almost fantasy starter, right where you have him. And I feel comfortable with that. What he does well, he does really well. So he's somebody that, like, middle of the 2nd round in rookie drafts, depending on landing spot, like, I feel comfortable with him right there. So definitely somebody that you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I actually came in with the highest grade at 75.4. And just seeing this and knowing that he could have come out last year, I feel like he may have lost some money in the NFL draft. I'd be very interested to see how early he would have gone last year if he came out.
I think what's interesting, like the grades that we've done so far, like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys right now, all within 6 or 7 points of each other at the running back position. Like when we say that this class is deep, like it's deep with a lot of really good guys. So yeah, like just what you said, Rupert, like it's maybe not the best business decision to be in this draft class, but he's still a great commodity to be paying attention to.
And just to piggyback off that, I've already said it multiple times. I feel like my final rankings is going to vary so much based on landing spot because these film grade scores are so close for so many of these guys. It's really, who has juiciest landing spots going to fly up the rankings.
For sure. Well, this has been a fun show. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us talk about Devin Neal. Want to give a quick plug as we sign off here. We have a free Discord, no strings attached. We just want to get to know the people that listen to our podcast. There's over 200 members in there. It's really active. There's a dynasty startup mock draft going on right now that some members just felt like doing. So they're doing a mock draft startup, and it's a fun place to find new leagues to play in. We talk trades, we react to news during the season. There's start sits. When we get into prime rookie draft season, we've got an on the clock channel where people are going to be posting their on the clock decisions. It's a fun place to be. So definitely join the Discord. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using, and check out our new podcast. If you missed it last week, we started a brand new podcast here on the main channel. It'll be releasing every Friday morning, called the Couch GM Podcast, part of the Couch Scouts family. And, you know, a GM needs a good scout to do his job well, but scouting's only half the battle. So the Couch GM podcast, we're going to be covering the more strategic side of managing a dynasty roster rather than the nitty gritty scouting details. Currently, we are actually reviewing and reacting to a Superflex rookie mock draft that we did in the Discord a few weeks ago. So we did round 1 last week. We're going to be picking up with round 2 this week, and really excited about that show. So
I'm also very excited for Friday. That was a really fun first episode, and I'm already ready to see episode 2 on the second round of that mock. It was a lot of fun.
Glad you enjoyed it, man. I love, shout out Skip Newton, our new co-host on that show, one of my good friends in this industry, and really glad he agreed to do it with me. So thank you guys for listening. You can find me on Twitter/X at CouchScoutsFF. You can find Mr. Rupert at Matthew Rupert FF, and you can find Mr. Jackson at Devy Matt, DEVY Matt, and we will see you next week.